know what each of you thought about the movie and how can we help make some of the things in the movie better, or use the movie to make the school system better.
Can I add on to that question? Because in the movie, I mean, you're speaking, Dr. Eckert, of business collaboration, parental collaboration, public or community collaboration in improving schools. How much in this movie there's a kind of problem with how the union sees the duty of teachers and how the rest of us see it. So how do we, as a community, address that issue as well?
But my first question is, what did you think of the movie?
I think there's lots of food for thought in the movie. I think there are examples of things that are working in certain areas. There are also examples of things that have not necessarily worked over time as they looked at different ways to approach the problems. I think we looked at different areas. So some of the things that are applicable in some situations may not be as applicable in our local situation. But I think you do have to look at how you meet the needs of the child, how you make sure that there's full investment by the family and the child and the teacher in the education of that child, because it is all three that have to be committed to it working. And most of the charter schools that have been successful have been able to sort of marshal that together. A commitment has been made by all parties that the days will be longer, the homework has to be done, that there's a commitment by the parents to the success. And I think that's critical if we're going to be successful with children who have traditionally not succeeded as well, or are coming to the table with not as many resources as we would hope everybody would have. But clearly you have to determine what it is the children need, and you have to try and put together the right package of things that's going to build on that and allow them to be successful. Because I do believe when given the opportunity, children can succeed and will.
Thank you for the question. This is the third time I've had a chance to see it, and I apologize for having to step out a couple times for some conference calls from California, but this movie addresses just some of the issues in the public school system. And I think to Ellen's point where she was talking about how you have different circumstances, an individual school is very much an individual school. We talk about how we have the best school system in Howard County, in Maryland, and those type of things, and Maryland being one of the best in the nation, et cetera. But not all schools are created equal. Not all teachers are. Not all students are. And so as much as we can get down to the individual level of the student and personalize that experience is really, really critical. I think one of the challenges we have is when you look at the model of that movie, it's very much a factory model. And it's still what we have in our public school system. It's all around standardization. It's all about uniformity. It's all around certain parts being assembled on there. And we have this very archaic negotiation system with unions. It's very much like a factory worker, where they're all compensated almost identically based upon tenure, based upon studies that show that just compensating them more for a degree does absolutely nothing. There's this very old-fashioned 100-year-old model that we have, and unfortunately, No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top are just trying to refine that model of a factory, but the factory's been outsourced overseas. And so it's obsolete at this point in time. And so we really need to go beyond that, and I think that the standard old-fashioned model of whether the unions are good, the unions are bad, how we negotiate, and that type of thing, the whole model of the way that's done is obsolete. And that's not the way children learn anymore. No one goes to an expert or a book to learn something, they Google it. It's a very different world that we live in now, and this model is predicated upon book and experts and those type of things, and whether they have tenure or not, and Google doesn't have tenure, and there are a lot of things that just don't exist that way anymore, and we need to get beyond that, I think. And the thing that breaks my heart every time I see that movie is you see these parents that really care, and they don't have choice. They don't have the flexibility to use their money, because money's not the problem. Baltimore City, PG County, they all spend more than Howard County, and for the most part, their school systems are pathetic for the money that they spend. And it's wrong, it's a crime. And so, it's just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. It's a waste of money. When you have a group like the Center for American Progress, which is a fairly liberal think tank funded by George Soros, et cetera, highlighting Howard County as one of the most inefficient counties when it comes to the amount of money we spend versus the outcomes we get. And that's not coming from folks that think like me, like the Heritage Foundation or that type of thing. It's coming from the Center for American Progress. We can do better. And money's not the issue.
I thought the movie was very good. I think the public schools need some competition. And the KIPP school, the charter schools are providing that. Other schools that really got no competition. And but yet, when you try to start those schools, the KIPP school in Baltimore City, for instance, a year ago, the unions got upset because the teachers agreed to work extra hours and come in on Saturdays. The union got upset and they couldn't do it anymore. They had to stop it. And that the movie pointed out very clearly one problem that the unions had. Years ago, we needed unions. When I started teaching back in the dark ages, you wouldn't see the superintendent to get the job. He'd pull something out, he'd pull the salaries out of his pocket, and there was no salary scale. He'd tell you what you'd get. And if a lady went in and her husband was teaching, well, you don't need as much money. Your husband's teaching, you need 2 salaries. We needed unions back then, but I think they've gone too far. We have to bring them back a little bit and work for the students. I heard Michelle Ray talk, and Hal was there that morning, the Rotary Club, and the president of the Howard County Teachers Union was there, and she said, why don't you work with the union? And Michelle Ray said, well, I like the president and all, but the union has a different purpose than I have. The union cares about the teachers, I care about the kids.
That are concerned about the children. Who can deal with these unions? Because our hands are tied. So,
Well, actually, Mr. Ecker serves on the Labor Relations.
Yeah.
yeah.
The legislature and the governor, in their wisdom, a year ago, set up a public school labor relations board. That board is designed to hear any disputes between the local union and the school board. Where there was a dispute or mediation or arbitration, things went to the state superintendent of schools and the state school board. And the unions didn't like their ruling, and they went to the governor and the legislature, and they passed this public school labor relations board. There's 5 members on it. I happen to be one of the 5. There's 2 from management, 2 from the union, and 1 from neutral. The governor appointed it. Well, one of the union representatives worked for NEA as their attorney, I think, for 38 or 40 years.
Was that the neutral person?
No, that's not the neutral person. And we're just getting started. We got the Senate approved this, I think, in April, and we're working on rules and regulations now. And we actually have not heard any cases. We've had some requests, and we've denied 2 of them, sent them back to the table, and they settled, and one's proceeding through the pipeline.
So the way we can interact with the best, or to make some change, is to.
Well, no, we don't have any power to make changes. The legislatures have to make the change because the negotiations law in Maryland passed in 1968, and they talked about the decline in 1970 in the movie.
Yeah.
I think there's a correlation. But again, in the movie it talked about how much money the American Federation of Teachers and National Education Association provides to mainly Democrats. And they sort of control, and so you have to take over the governor's mansion and get the majority in the right, Senator, and do it.